Howdy, and welcome back to another episode of the We Were Wrong podcast. This last week was incredibly rough for me in particular. Both Ryan and Walker had positive records at the end of the week, but I suffered a pretty hefty defeat that we'll get into in a second. But this is the Texas Private School podcast. As always, I am 1/3 of your hosting crew. I, Wes Tolleson, join you from College Station, where Walker Lott also joins you from. Walker, what'd you think of the last very tumultuous week of private school football?
I think people finally were going into district. You see how people are playing and like seeing how good teams actually are now. You don't have the out of district, kind of smaller, bigger teams playing smaller teams and like out of, UIL teams. You're seeing people who really are like how they are. And it's exciting to see.
No, without a doubt. Ryan Schroeder joins us from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Ryan, same question to you. Last week of private school football, a lot of shakeup happening. What do you think?
Yeah, no, a lot of shakeup happening, and I'm glad I actually got to go see a game. Really, really cool weekend for all of us to be able to go to a game. I mean, that really hasn't happened for our podcast yet since high school, where all of us have been at a private high school football game on a Friday night. So ton of fun. Glad we got to go out there and, basically hang out with the teams and really cover the games and show that we're there. We're there to cover y'all's games, and we're there to actually learn more about how y'all play.
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, shout out to all the schools we went to. I know we all got a lot of love from all the fans in person and on social media. Y'all got us like 100 followers in like just a week of doing that. So we're all greatly appreciative of it. I think it's starting to people are starting to understand that we're we are the premier private school football coverage like in Texas, and that's a fact. And we're all incredibly grateful for that. I mean, we don't do what we do without y'all. So yet again, thank you from all of us. But transitioning to our first segment, as always, we will recap last week's pick record, something I'm not very fond of doing. Walker actually won the week going 10-5. Still tied for, I guess now you're tied for second with me. Good Lord. You were 69-29 overall. Walker, your very quick thoughts on last week going 10-5.
In the words of Aggie legend Johnny Manziel, who was in town for the amazing, sensational win over Alabama this past weekend, Giga Maggies. Anyways, in the words of Johnny Manziel, comeback season is what it is. This is what we do. I'm coming for you, Ryan. I mean, keep going. I got this, baby. I got this. Don't even worry about it.
For the sake of just keeping this authentic, Ryan, I'm going to let you respond to that immediately.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know what this is about. I mean, I'm literally still in first. I went 9-6. This is literally my worst week by far. You'll never see me do this again, and I can promise you that. 74-24. I'm still number one. I still have less than 30 losses. I still have 50 more wins than I have losses. So if that tells you anything, just know that I'm still number one. I'm still going to keep the number one spot. And yeah, Giga Maggies, I guess. I mean, that was a good weekend. I remember I posted on my story and both Wes and Walker were like, oh my goodness, did that really just happen? And I don't know. Not that we're a A&M podcast, but go Pokes. So I don't know. So
we're 2/3 of an A&M podcast.
Yeah, I guess.
I can't not like go this whole podcast without mentioning it. That was one of the most insane sporting events I've ever attended. My voice is still trying to come back from that. It was ridiculous. But again, this isn't an A&M podcast. It's a private school football podcast. I went 7-8 on the week, the worst out of the group. I don't have much to say. It was a horrendous outing, and we'll actually get into why that was. One of the worst picks of the week I made was TWCA to beat Fort Bend, and I'll detail that because I covered that live, and I was proven wrong by the whole team. But transitioning actually to Fort Bend Christian Academy, we go into our Texas Private School podcast, Offensive Player of the Week, junior quarterback Brady Dever. This is one of the craziest performances I've ever seen live, and I'm not BSing you. I'm being straight up. This man threw 24 for 33, 512 passing yards, 8 touchdowns in a win against a statement win against the Woodlands Christian Academy. I mean, 2/3 of the podcast picked against them. Shout out Walker for taking their team. But I mean, they came out and basically curb stomped the Woodlands. I mean, they were on a mission the entire game. And Brady Dever was on a mission to prove that he is at least the number 2 quarterback in his class. I think he's trying to tell everyone that he's number 1. I mean, I knew who the kid was going to the game, or at least I had an idea of him. But I mean, after that game ended, I know without a doubt Brady Dever, I'll keep an eye on the rest of the season. It's super nice and humble kid too. I talked to him for a while after the game. Very appreciative of what we do for their team and private school as a whole. But I just talked a lot. Walker, Brady Dever, 512 yards, 8 touchdowns. Your thoughts on this massive performance?
I mean, I know last year before the season even started, at the end of last year's season, I told everyone, I was like, hey, there's this kid down in Fort Bend that he's going to make a lot of noise. And he did over the summer. He went to all the camps. He did the 7-on-7 circuit and just kind of just balled out. And while playing baseball in the summers too. So like doing both is very, very impressive. But, I saw him at the 7-on-7 tournament. He's a natural passer, man. He can throw the ball. And I think that's why you see why, like, they have talented receivers without a doubt, but you need a guy to throw the ball basically and get it to his athletes. And he does that, one of the best in Houston. I honestly do think in that 23 class, as he is ranked by the private school football guy as the number 2 passer in the state of Texas, I honestly think just in not just private school, but also in the state, I think he can be pretty dang good. And he can be one of those top guys in the city of Houston, greater area of Houston, and honestly the state in 23. So.
No, for sure. I mean, the kid's for real, and he's proving it as each game goes on. Ryan, Brady Dever, crazy performance against the Woodlands Christian Academy. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the kid is an absolute stud. Played super well, 8 touchdowns, 512 yards. You won't see that from basically anybody else in private school, nor will you see that really anywhere. But I want to make it very clear, Woodlands is a good basketball team. So, I kind of just went with my gut. If they're good at one sport, they're good at another. So I apologize for Ben. I guess I didn't know enough about y'all. And Brady Dever, I mean, oh my goodness, bro. What a heck of a performance. I definitely am not going to go against Fort Bend anymore. That was such an amazing performance by them against the Woodlands.
No, it definitely was. And that, this game proves that stats are very different from the eye test. I mean, the Woodlands was 5-0 coming into the game. Fort Bend was 2-3, but there's a huge discrepancy there. But we'll talk about that more once we get into that game. But now looking at our Texas Private School Podcast Defensive Player of the Week, we have junior linebacker from Parish, Cooper Mayland, who had 17 tackles and 4 tackles for loss and a win against Prestonwood. A huge win for Parish as a team to kind of slot themselves as the number 1 team in Division I. We had Prestonwood at number 1, but Cooper Mayland's effort and the whole team's effort really did a huge number in dislodging them at that number 1 ranking and slotting Parish there. So, Walker, I'll turn to you first. Junior linebacker Cooper Mayland, 17 tackles, 4 TFLs, huge performance. Your thoughts and a huge win against Prestonwood.
Yeah, when I went and saw Parish play Bel Air Episcopal to start the season, he was one of those guys at the linebacker position that kind of stood out. And I was like, all right, they have a lot of young guys on this team that can make some noise. And, I was kind of just waiting for see some of these guys step up to the plate and kind of have that great game, and this week it's him. Great game by him, his dominant performance. And especially against Prestonwood. I mean, that was our number 1 team in the state. That's a tough team to play against, no matter who says what. And he showed up, he showed out, and that's what you want in a linebacker.
No, without a doubt. Ryan, Cooper Mayland, huge game against Prestonwood. Your opinion?
Yeah, and we'll go into it later when we talk about the actual game, or actually probably in a second when we talk about the game. But, honestly, that's an insane performance. Preston was a great team. And we'll talk about who was there and who was not there for Prestonwood's offense, but still 17 tackles, 4 tackles for loss. You won't see that out of a lot of other guys, just like you won't see what Brady Dever did. I mean, these guys showed out this week, and 17 tackles, he was all over the freaking field. I mean, there's no other way to describe that.
No, it was just an insane performance by Cooper Mayland. So congratulations, Cooper Mayland. Congratulations, Brady Dever, as our Texas Private School Podcast Players of the Week. Both these guys balled out for their respective teams, and keep an eye on them as we move deeper into district play. Now we are going to look at last week's matchups. We had 5 games of the week. We'll also talk about Ryan's game. And we're starting with Parish at Prestonwood, the biggest matchup of the year so far. Again, this was our number 1 versus number 2, and there's going to be a new number 1, or there is already when we sent out the rankings. I mean, Parish solidified themselves in this game. Andrew Paul goes absolutely ballistic here, scoring all 5 Parish touchdowns, along with 172 rushing yards, averaging over 8 per attempt in a 35-10 win for the Panthers over Prestonwood. Prestonwood actually jumped out to a 3-0 lead early, and then Parish responded to make it only 7-3 going into the half. So this wasn't nearly as wide of a margin as it looks like going into halftime. I mean, these teams really, really were battling it out in the first half. It was just in the second half, Parish blew the game open, outscoring Prestonwood 28-3. I mean, the Parish defense did a tremendous job here with Noah Billings and Daniel Demery both grabbing picks. Prestonwood quarterback Jack McGraw goes for 206 yards passing in just his second start, and wideout Derek Espuillo goes for 100 yards receiving. So that's kind of the name of the game by the stats standpoint. Walker, I'll look at you first. I mean, this was a gigantic game in terms of, who's battling for supremacy in that kind of district of doom that they're both in. So what do you think about this game and the implications of it moving further into the season?
I like, I'm talking like I just said a second ago, when I went and watched Parish versus Bel Air to start the season, Andrew Paul was just like, he's just bigger than everyone else. He can run over people. He's gonna go down forwards. You're gonna need 1 or 2 guys to tackle him. He's that type of player. He's just bigger, stronger, faster than everyone else, and he just runs the ball really, really well. And that's what you saw them do. Like I think I said earlier in a couple episodes ago when I talked about that game, when you're running behind the O-line of Aiden Gilmore and the rest of those guys, I mean, that's room for trouble for any team. And, they always have a great quarterback there, Sawyer Anderson's taking over there now, and they love their passing attack. But I mean, the reason they've won games throughout the years is having a good running back. Cedric Benson last year and the years before that, they just always have that good back. And Andrew Paul is just the next man up, just taking that load. And he's different from Cedric in that Cedric was more of a receiving threat as well. And he can, do a lot of different things. He's a power back, baby. He'll run you over and just get those yards. And I mean, that's why you saw him dominate today. And with him, I mean, they can make damage for how long they want to go into the playoffs. So,
yeah, for sure. Andrew Paul is going to be a huge weapon for Parish moving forward. I'll turn to our resident Atlanta Braves fan, Ryan Schroeder. Your thoughts on this game, Parish at Prestonwood?
And I'm going to go out by saying this because I am definitely the front runner for Prestonwood in this whole establishment, because I definitely do think Prestonwood is a great team. And I want to make that very clear on why this game was the reason why it was. And this game would have been a lot closer if it wasn't because of this. Everybody knows the name McGuire Martin. McGuire Martin did not play in this game. McGuire Martin is the Prestonwood quarterback who this year has been putting up, he's already put up 1,062 passing yards and 15 touchdowns in 4 games. So he's a great quarterback. He's done a lot for this offense. And although there's like backup quarterback has played in all 5 games so far, he has to come in because McGuire Martin has just beat the crap out of the rest of the teams in order for him to come in. Also, they didn't have their starting running back. His name is TD Murray. TD Murray has also been a big part of this team. He basically had 268 yards in the year so far. He has had 4 touchdowns. And also on top of that, McGuire Martin is also a big part of their running game. He has 132 rushing yards himself with a touchdown on the ground. So it's really hard for you to have this other quarterback, Jack McGraw come in and basically run the offense while he's still a junior. McGuire Martin's still a junior. TD Murray is also a junior. And then basically you're leaving it up to their star wide receiver, whose name is Nate Stafford, who still is doing very well. He's got 11 touchdowns 483 receiving yards. Still a great player, but he can't run the entire offense from the wide receiver position. It's just not logical. And they ended up having to play the running back position with a sophomore. And shout out to Caleb Bowers, who basically had to take over the game and try to put up basically the front man for this game, even though he's just only a sophomore. So, they're playing Parish Episcopal. They didn't have two of their best offensive powers. It makes a lot of sense to me why this game was the way that it was. And there's not a lot you can do as a defense when you can't see that your offense is not putting up a lot of points. So, big shout out to Parish. They really proved themselves, but don't count this Prestonwood team out. It's a very hard loss and to take when you don't have the key assets of your team. And big shout out to Troop O'Neill, who's our friend that's a kicker on the team. He's one of their big players as well when it comes to special teams. I mean, he provides basically a lot of their points at this point when they can't, score a lot when it comes to their offense in games like this. So great game by Prestonwood, but better game obviously by Parish. Parish is definitely a dominant power and deserves the number one spot.
Yeah, no, that context goes a very long way in explaining deeper than the stats why this game was the way it was. I mean, again, don't be surprised if these two teams see each other later in the season. I mean, it'll be a much different game than it was this last week for both teams, and I think it'll be incredibly interesting to see how that develops. Moving into our next game, we see Argyle Liberty Christian played at Midland Christian, and senior quarterback River Rodriguez led the Mustangs to a 48-20 win over Liberty Christian. Rodriguez did most of the damage with his legs, rushing for 151 yards on 19 carries and 4 touchdowns. He also threw a couple touchdowns and accounting for 6 of the 7 total Mustang TDs. Junior wide receiver Sean Madison had a monster game from Midland receiving, amassing 180 yards and only 6 receptions and scoring all 3 of Midland's touchdowns through the air. Dawson Bullard and Brody Dixon led the Mustangs on the defensive end, each clocking in 11 solo tackles. So, Walker, I mean, this was kind of what we expected in this game. Midland very much seemed to be the better team. Argyle Liberty has struggled early in the season, and they're not really in a district where you can afford to struggle for very long. So your thoughts on this 48-20 win for the Mustangs?
Yeah, the thing about Argyle, it's not like they don't really have bad coaching. They don't have bad players. They're just, I don't know. It's always a weird thing because Argyle was a good team back in the day, but now they're just kind of not there because they have the athletes, but I think they just, compared to the others, they just kind of don't, So it's really hard to really explain the issue there. And hopefully Jason Witten can turn that program around, which I honestly think he can. But yeah, Midland's Midland, man. They're a good team. They've always had the weapons. They had the weapons this time, and you saw the dominant performance this past week. And like always, it's hard to go out and play in Midland, man. It's very, very difficult. And they showed why. And yeah, I mean, very proud of those Midland guys. Yeah.
No, really solid effort by the Mustangs. Ryan, 48-20 win for Midland over Liberty Christian. Your thoughts on the game?
Really not a lot that I have to say. I mean, you talk about every time about having to travel out to Midland and do that whole trek out there. But, I mean, River Rodriguez honestly might just be the Lamar Jackson of private school football with the way that he does it. He can do it through the air. He can do it on the ground. He really proves that he is that versatile of a quarterback. So, honestly, big shout out to Argyle Liberty. They didn't take load of this season. They just packed their schedule. Obviously, this is district now, but they packed their non-conference schedule. They're now in district now, and it really just proves that, they are the type of guys that just wanted to make sure to put this season as hard as possible. They really, are playing teams that obviously are very elite, and I definitely think that Jason Witten could turn them around after just a couple of years of this.
Yeah, no, I mean, the boys from Argyle aren't going to back down from a challenge. That is certainly a fact at this point. And again, I think in the next couple of years, you'll see Liberty slowly start to turn things around, especially with a guy like Jason Witten at the helm. How many schools can say that's your coach? But we'll see. I mean, only time will tell with them. Now we look at a game that Walker himself actually got to go cover in Grapevine Faith at Southwest Christian. That ended up being a 34-16 win for Walker's Eagles and another incorrect pick for me. So, Walker, detail us what happened in this game and why it ended the way it did.
This game for the battle for basically the top team in Division II, District 1, was just a really, really fun game to go to. Credit to my Eagles. They had a really good game plan going into it. And what they didn't have in the past is what they have now. It's just like toughness, this gritty, just gritty team that they want to put people in the dirt on that wing T offense and run the ball down your throat until you can't you don't want it no more. And then they'll still keep doing it. And that's how they play. And you saw the Grapevine Faith, that defense just slowly get tired and mentally just beaten. And it just took a toll on them. And that's why the score was where it is. But I want to give credit to Chase Cross, that quarterback. I think Private School Football Guy had him ranked at like 6 in the class of 2023. I saw him, and he made some throws that were just sensational. I mean, kid can throw the ball, and wherever he wanted it, his out routes were crisp. I remember that when they got those 3 points at the end of the half, I mean, it was a game managed, just 1 minute drill by Chase Cross. Deep ball to get him into field goal range, run the ball one time or pass the ball, and then kick the field goal. And I think he had like 30 seconds on the clock to do that. I mean, that's just how he is. He's a good quarterback. I was very, very impressed with him. And he did all of that. I mean, he had, 317 yards passing, and he did that without Josh Turrell. He's out with an ACL injury. So their star wide receiver who got Kentucky offered this a couple weeks ago, he's out with injury, out for the season, I believe. And then I was talking to the guys, the number 2 wide receiver for them also was out. So he still put up that much passing and just didn't have his weapons really there. So that's going to hurt them down the road. But with Chase Cross at the helm, I believe in this team. I really, really do. On the other side, Antoine Polk, I heard about this kid going into the season, going to make a mark on the season. And he kind of started off sluggish the past couple of games and then just hit the head on this one, man. 147 yards rushing, 26 attempts and 2 TDs. Just he like we said with Andrew Paul earlier, he's just bigger than everyone else. Like 6'1", 250 or 6 foot 215 as a back, and just plows over people, man. Especially like in private school, you don't have guys that big running the ball, and you just see him dominating. It was very, very impressive, and I want to give credit to that offensive line led by Court Comer. He wanted that shout out. Here's your shout out. Here's your photo, all that jazz. Congratulations. And that rest of the offensive line, John Talbot, who I think is going to be a Division I offensive lineman. You also had Hunter Sage, who I love Hunter Sage, man. You seeing him grow up from freshman to senior year and just being a dominant player. I want to give a shout out to him as well. He's playing both sides. He's playing linebacker and center. So he's being having to be that intelligent guy on both sides of the ball, leading that O-line and then also leading that defense. So shout out to him. That whole defensive line caused chaos for Chase, though, on the entire night. Milton Granger, Drew Viduris, and they have another guy in the middle. I forgot his name, but he's young. He's a sophomore, and he's like 6'2", 6'3", probably 270, and he's a big boy. And they also have Maddox McCarroll on the outside, who I really, really liked. He was, I believe, he's going to be a sophomore as well. And both Tanner Zyman and Antoine Polk are both juniors. They have them for another year. That's insane. This team is young already, and they can only get better. When you're already running the ball on a good district opponent like this, yeah, that's scary, man. That's really, really scary. Who else I wanted to give a shout out to? Of course. Oh, kicker alert. Hayden Bryan, the 2023 for us, punted a ball 70 yards during the game, and it was just amazing. Kid can boot it. I think if any colleges is looking at this episode, they need to look at this kid as a kicker. Go watch him. Watch his tape. He's a very good guy. And they also have Brian Sanders, the long snapper, as well. Overall, yes, Faith were hurt on the receiving end, but I think that running attack is just too much for this team. And we'll talk about it later, but with Fort Worth Christian kind of getting a little bit healthier, that Faith versus Fort Worth Christian matchup is actually going to be somewhat interesting. And I still think the number 1 and number 2 teams in the North are South Christian and DC. I probably have DC a little bit ahead right now, but this is a good team. I've been saying it. I like my Eagles, and they're also led by Rice commit Tyson Flowers, who Rice was in the building tonight for the game. Shout out to them. Tyson, man, you don't want to face him on defense. He just knows where to be. He's a dog out there, both sides of the ball. He's a nightmare to play against. And I said it in my tweet, and I'll say it again. He's probably one of the best athletes in all of private school, no matter where it is. And I think that him and the rest of those guys are going to lead that team to a very successful year and shock a lot of people. So, good team, good matchup, great matchup, honestly. Good, fun game to go to. Yeah, go Eagles, man.
Yeah, no, I knew that we all thought that Southwest Christian was going to be very good coming into the year. The question just is, what is their potential for the rest of the season? And a pretty crowded top of the ladder in Division II. But, I mean, Ryan, you also went and covered a game Friday night. That was Fort Worth Christian at your alma mater, Legacy. Tell us a little bit about how that went and how that game developed as it went on.
So honestly, at first, I didn't think it was going to get that far out of hand. And I honestly thought that this game in general was going to be like, it was going to be an 0-5 Fort Worth Christian team versus a team that was 1-4 in Legacy with a fantastic win against Grace Community. And I was very excited to see Legacy Christian play. And I knew that, they already lost one of their best players, Trace Harris, and they were coming out there just trying to do whatever they could. But I want to give a shout out to the 3 guys on this team that really proved to me that they are the true offense of this team. And those are Luke Embry, Jonah Lester, and Cole Faulkner. Cole Faulkner being the running back, Jonah Lester being the quarterback, and Luke Embry being the star wide receiver. It really just proved to me that these guys are the ones that are running this team. And the team is really not that big this year, to be honest. I literally went to the huddle after the game, and I was like, is this really all there is? There's only 20, 21 guys, 22 guys. It is not a lot of guys on this team. And I don't really know what's all about that, but yeah, what are you gonna say?
I wanted to ask about why do you think they switched back to the spread offense instead of the triple option they used to run? How has that affected that team?
I think what you'll see is we just feel like we have to throw the ball nowadays versus what we're running the ball, because we don't have as good of running backs as we used to have. We used to have this running back named AJ Asili, who was insanely good and ended up actually transferring to Frisco High School instead. And he actually would have been the starter this year as a senior. Obviously would have been the starter as a starter sophomore year, but they lost that, and now they kind of just have to play, try to get ball to the wide receivers, and the wide receivers are only as good as they can be. I mean, the real big thing that I wanted to mention is we're just short this year. Honestly, short players, and then also short number of the players, and then also short players. There's only 2 guys on the team that are above 6 feet tall.
Holy cow.
Ooh, that's not a good recipe.
Yeah, no, it's just the team is just not very tall in general. And so that plays a big factor in stuff like this, right? Well, you have guys that just decided not to play football this year. One of those being one of my good friends. His name is Matt Brenneman. Decided not to play football this year. He's a 6'4", huge 210, 220 guy. It was nah, I don't want to play this year. And it's oh my goodness. But when it comes to Fort Worth Christian, need to make it very clear. This team is not a bad team at all. Honestly, it just proved to me that sometimes you could just play a bunch of hard teams. Sometimes you can just be a little bit unhealthy. Sometimes you really just have guys that aren't playing that are really key factors of the team. And let me give a good shout out. Trevor Andrews, quarterback of this team, absolutely amazing. And then the 4 wide receivers that really make up this team, Gus Sanchez, Jacob Trimble, Jordan Green, and Grady Gann. All guys that just absolutely put up numbers for this team. If I go back to what I tweeted out, I mean, honestly, Jacob Trimble is the main guy that you normally think about for this team, but the man of the night actually ended up being Jordan Green, who had 4 catches for 105 yards and 3 touchdowns. So 3 of his 4 catches were touchdowns. First play of the game, ironically enough, it was a backwards pass over to the side, like a screen pass, backwards pass. And then what's called, I'm pretty sure quarterback Trevor Andrews went out for a pass, and Trevor Andrews caught the ball, with no one around him, basically 20 yards down the field, and he took it almost all the way for a receiving touchdown on the first play of the game. I was like, that's insane. But and big shout out to obviously the running back Luke Anderson, who was the main player of the night. He had 7 rushes for 178 yards and 4 touchdowns. The kid was an absolute dog. And Luke Anderson is no joke. But big shout out to those guys. Fort Worth Christian's a really good team. Shout out to the coaches who also were super cool with me. I know I was wearing my green legacy shirt as I walked over to their sideline for half the game. I'm glad they took me in as a Fort Worth Christian Cardinal for the night as I was wearing my opposite colors. But great team. And I actually am excited to see how Fort Worth Christian does in our district, just because I know Southwest Christian's a dog now that we know that they beat Grapevine Faith, and Grapevine Faith is beatable at this point. So we know Grapevine Faith is going to be good. Fort Worth Christian is not terrible, so I would keep an eye on them. And then there's Legacy, but we'll forget about Legacy.
No, I think this is a warning flare for sure, shot up by what we thought was a dying Fort Worth Christian, that they are not a bad team at all. I mean, I think now they're starting to get healthy. Things are starting to come together, and they are not going to be the same team that we thought they were week 3, week 4. So we're definitely going to be looking at Fort Worth Christian really, really closely as the weeks go on. I think they're going to be a lot better than we thought they were. Transitioning into our second to last game, that was Kincaid at ESD. Yet another game that I was incorrect on. This was a battle between the number 1 and number 2 SPC schools in our rankings. We saw this end up in a 31-19 win for ESD, where junior quarterback Patrick Burke led them with 168 yards on the ground, averaging 12 yards per carry and a touchdown. He also had 168 yards through the air and a couple passing touchdowns. Chase Kennedy and Teddy Sparrow also caught touchdowns from Burke. So, I mean, it was a pretty balanced attack from ESD to get this win, and to prove, was it all 3 of us wrong? Do we all have Kincaid in this game? Yeah. I mean, straight up, we hadn't seen ESD play yet. We were going off stats. We'll go and watch them at some point because we have to if they're that good. But this is, I think, a statement win for them, saying we own SPC as of now. And for now, they do, until Kincaid or someone else knocks them off. But Walker, I'll look at you first. This was a gigantic win, at least as a statement for Episcopal School of Dallas. Your thoughts on the game itself and the overall ramifications of this?
Yeah, I mean, like 7-0. I mean, I think that just shows it. I mean, they're dominant, and we all thought, hey, Kincaid's a really good team led by good athletes, and they kind of shocked us. ESD's for real, point blank. Period. I mean, that's just how they are. They're a good team. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this matchup in the state championship, being real. I could see this matchup coming back again, and that will be very interesting to see after a couple more games under their belt, and see that matchup again. Congrats to ESD, man. Good team.
Ryan, gigantic win for ESD here, cementing themselves as the number 1 team in SBC. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you can't knock out what's it called? You can't knock out Dylan Bell, who plays for this Kincaid team. Kincaid definitely has a lot of dogs for them, but sometimes star power doesn't just overtake how you play as a team. If ESD really just shows that they are, great players, because Dylan Bell didn't actually have a horrible game. He played really well, honestly. And it doesn't matter if ESD plays better as a team, they'll beat teams. And it's all about which teams can actually play together as a whole versus just having star power, which is what I just said 2 seconds ago. But honestly, it's true. ESD is a team that I feel like plays more as a team, and that's the reason why they're going to take it as the number 1 spot. That's not to say that these teams are not both very, very good teams. And I still do think, in my opinion, this may not be the opinion of Wes and Walker, so don't take this, but even though they have 2 losses, I honestly think they're still better than Houston St. John's, just because of the fact that they really do prove to me that they are a really tough team. But we do need to go see at least ESD play. If not, we can try to sneak in a Kincaid game as well.
Yeah, funny enough, we all have, or not we all, most of the state has ESD and Kincaid as a consensus number one and number two. I've gotten some information from a source that said that shouldn't be the case in SBC, and I'll keep his anonymity, but I don't think that's how you say that word. But
Yeah, keep him anonymous, something like that.
Just something like that. I was close, but I'll get it a little bit more into my rationale on that when I detail another game coming up. But in terms of our last game, the game that I got to cover last Friday, a game that opened up my eyes to how good a certain team was. That team is Fort Bend Christian Academy, who played at the Woodlands Christian Academy last Friday night. And folks, I was dead wrong about Fort Bend. I covered this game in person, as I mentioned, and my Lord, this team is much better than the record states. Top prospect in the 23 class, Brady Dever, posts one of the crazier stat lines of the year that we already mentioned, as he was our player of the week, 515 through the air, 8 touchdowns. And he has some absolute beasts at receiver that make this possible for him. Number one, Marcus Cretan goes 6 receptions, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns. Number 2, Domino goes 6 receptions, 148 yards, 3 touchdowns. Number 11, Gardoni goes 7 receptions, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns. And number 4, Dylan Dixon goes 5 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown. So the fact that he had 4 receivers go over 100 yards receiving, and basically 2 of those go over 150, I mean, it's just, you rarely see a single receiver in a game have a stat line like that, let alone 4. I mean, and I'm telling you, I saw it in person. All 4 of those guys are freak athletes. I mean, they all either are or should be receiving collegiate attention. They are all very, very good. I cannot stress that enough. And they were super, super nice when I talked to them after the game. They were all very, very appreciative and grateful for what we do. And that was super nice to see. But in terms of defense, he was actually a candidate for the Texas Private School Football Guy, Defensive Player of the Week. Blaine Baird, senior defensive back, had 10 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 picks. I think both of which I got on our Twitter. You can go back and look at. That kid's a really, really good athlete. I mentioned in my post-game write-up, he's got a high IQ and a higher motor. I mean, the kid is really, really good. That Fort Bend team is solid. I'll say it again. They are very, very good. A lot better than a 3-3 record states. And I know they already lost. They had that loss to St. John's and lost to DC, who are 2 incredible teams in their own right. So it'll be incredibly interesting to see how they perform in that district and how playoffs goes for them. Walker, I'll look at you first. I mean, your thoughts on, the bigger development of this game and the game as a whole.
I mean, I had faith in Fort Bend. Just saying.
That's a good point.
I had faith in Fort Bend. I knew they had the athletes, man. And I think that, and I know they were out a couple of guys for that DC game, and you saw, hey, that we still are that team. DC was just a better team and shut them down defensively, and that's kind of what they do to pretty much every team, though. But that's just how they are. But Fort Bend always has the guys. And I still think they're a pretty good team. We'll get into rankings later, but Fort Bend kind of what I want to say this: the Woodlands Christian Academy has athletes, and you kind of mentioned it, but it's not like they're a bad team. Fort Bend is just a really better program at the moment, and you see for the Woodlands just came back from D3 a couple years ago, and you see them somewhat progressing through D2, and they'll get there. Don't get it twisted. They'll get back to being a good team. They just got a little bit of ways to go. So, you mentioned it. You already talked about it enough, how good that offense was. Fort Bend will be a good team, and I think the last week of the season is Second Baptist versus Fort Bend. That'll be a good game and fun game to go watch.
Yeah, no, for sure. And in terms of the Woodlands, I mean, running back Rourke Hawkins was incredible for them. He had a 70-yard electric touchdown run. And quarterback Josh Johnson is very good in his own right. He's an elusive runner. He's a good decision maker at quarterback. They were simply overmatched in this game. But Ryan, I mean, we've talked a lot about this game so far, but is there anything else you have to offer for Fort Bend versus the Woodlands?
We're about to get right into this in the rankings in a second, but in all reality, I think this team is right where they should be in our rankings. They're right there, right at the cusp of Grapevine Faith. They could be better than Grapevine Faith, but it really is just the fact that they had players out in that DC game and stuff like that. Because this team is really, really good, and their offense is star power central. So that's all I gotta say about that.
I think Star Power Central is probably the best way I've heard Fort Bend's offense described. They are incredibly electric. And I know I've said that word like 3 times in the segment alone, but electricity is literally the definition of what this offense is. But that actually wraps up our games of the week from last week. Now we're going to get into talking about our new updated rankings after I fought off a horde of Nolan Catholic fans on Twitter over the last one. Just for the record, Nolan Catholic does move up in these rankings. That is not a result of me being pestered on Twitter. I don't cave to peer pressure. But no, it was fun. I enjoyed all of them. I enjoyed all of the Nolan guys like in our replies after they beat the breaks off of JP. There's a couple other things that happened that I didn't take kindly to, but that's a whole different story. But we will actually start with our Division I rankings. We see 3 teams move up. Parish moves into number 1 after their win over Prestonwood. Nolan Catholic slides in at number 2, and Central Catholic goes at number 3. The only team that drops is Prestonwood from number 1 to number 4. And guys, I don't know if there's a lot to talk about here. I mean, it's pretty daggum simple what happened. Parish beat Prestonwood. Prestonwood slides down. Nolan and Central slide up. So, I mean, any greater expansion from either of y'all on this?
Only thing I was going to say is Antonian did win their game against St. Pius, right? Is that how it was? But
yeah.
Honestly, St. Pius doesn't really need to drop because they're not worse than Bishop Lynch. I think like we kind of just put those rankings right where they are. Antonian's not better than Midland, and St. Pius is not worse than Bishop Lynch. You'll see that was a win right there and a loss right there, but that's just right where they need to be. They're right where they are.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of conversation that needs to be had about D1. I mean, I don't think you can have some debate about like 1 through 4, but I think everything's pretty cut and dry there.
Yeah.
But now looking at Division II, a little bit different movement here. Southwest moves up to number 4 after their defeat of Grapevine Faith, who slides down to number 5. Fort Bend Christian slides all the way up to number 6 after their defeat of the Woodlands Christian, who moves down to 9. So yet again, just pretty linear movement. You beat someone, you move up, you lose, you move down. I mean, is there anything else that needs to be stated here?
I mean, not really. I think like you kind of mentioned, Ryan, Fort Bend Christian being 5 or 6, you could have the argument of them being 5, but I think it's a 5-1 team versus a 3-3 team, and records do count a little bit into that. And I'm gonna put Grapevine Faith there, and we put Grapevine Faith there because we think they're a better team and just had the better record. I won't say too much, but yes, Fort Worth Christian has caught our eye. Especially like we could have put them into that 10th spot, but I'm not like Brook Hill's 4-2, Fort Worth Christian's 1-5. They had a good win over Legacy, but Legacy will be the bottom of that district. I mean, let's see how the season progresses to see how Fort Worth Christian moves up, but they're right outside, kind of one to watch.
Let me make this very clear. I'm going to talk about this real quick. Fort Bend Christian, we put them above a 5-1 team. We put them above Lutheran South. So they are there. They're in the mix. It doesn't matter about, we do take record into account, but we still look at who they are as a team. However, when I say Fort Worth Christian beat the brakes off of Legacy, JP2 beat the brakes off of Legacy. And then JP2 just lost like insane amount to Nolan Catholic. So not that Nolan Catholic and JP2, not that Nolan Catholic and Legacy are on the same schedule, or not that Fort Worth Christian and Nolan Catholic are the same team either. Just have to realize Legacy is Legacy, and Fort Worth Christian will have to see how they play against Southwest and Grapevine in order to truly evaluate them.
Yeah, no, I'll say really quickly. I personally think after what I've seen right now, Fort Worth Christian is a better team than Brook Hill. I think you could very easily slide them into that 10th spot. It's just right now, I mean, they're 1-5. And like you mentioned, their one win is against, I'm sorry, Brian, a really bad Legacy team. I mean,
Bro.
there's not enough. Oh, trust me, I know you're aware. But the thing is, I can say that because my team's worse. But they have to build their resume a little bit more for us to slide them in there. I'm saying right now, I think that they'll be in there, and I think they'll probably be higher than 10 when the year ends. But we'll see. Now we slide into our top 10 of D3/D4, which is just one of the hardest lists for us to compile, is because there's so many good teams, so many teams that are right there with each other. So please give us some grace on this. We know none of you are probably going to agree with this exactly, but this is our thoughts. So Grace Prep remains at number 1. We see Cypress Christian and Pantego Christian move up. Lubbock Christian moves to number 4. And then we see Covenant Christian move to number 9 and Weatherford drop down to 10. Everything else stays the same. So yet again, I mean, all this seems to make sense in my eyes. What is this? Does anything stand out to y'all here in terms of movements in D3 and D4?
I'm just gonna, sorry, I know we usually go Walker than me, but I'm gonna say this real quick. Just because I was describing it to Walker before the podcast, and this is how I want to describe it to y'all as well. In all reality, we're going to talk about more A&M Alabama. Sorry to everybody that is an Alabama fan here, but you have to think about it like this. Yes, there was Covenant and Lubbock Christian, or what was the game? Covenant beat.
Oh,
Lubbock
I see
Christian,
where this
right?
is going.
Okay, right. Covenant beats Lubbock Christian, right? Well, just because A&M beats Alabama doesn't mean Alabama drops to number 23 and A&M jumps up to number 22, right? That's just not how things work. Yeah. In all reality, Alabama hasn't lost in 2 years, so they're going to drop 4 or 5 spots. They dropped down to number 5, I think, in the AP poll. And A&M doesn't jump to number 4. They've lost to a couple teams already. That means they only get to jump up to 19, 18, 20, whatever they deserve, right?
We should jump to number 1, but that's my opinion.
Okay, whatever. I don't know why you're saying that. But in all reality, that's just not how things work. And I think that needs to be stated. Weatherford did beat Covenant, right? Weatherford beat Covenant, and we still have Covenant above Weatherford.
Adding on to that, because I want to see that it was an overtime win by 1 point. So Covenant had the better win, so they move up, but it's not like we put them 4 spots ahead of them. We put them 1 spot ahead. Yes, Lake Country Christian did beat Weatherford. But in my eyes, I think Covenant is a better team than Lubbock LCCS. So I think Weatherford's win over Covenant is a better win than the loss to Lake Country. And the thing about, we were talking about it before, Lake Country ends the season with Covenant, Lubbock, Trinity Christian Lubbock, and then Lubbock Christian to end the season. That's 3 hard wins to pull off. So if they do, yeah, for sure, they should jump in the top 10. And they are pretty much the one person out of our team, but I think we have it pretty much right. I think Lubbock going down to 4 was a good spot. I think everything else is pretty good. I mean, it's hard to also rank those D4 teams of Brian Brazos and Shiner St. Paul of like, hey, where do you put everyone else? But I think we have it pretty good, honestly. And it only comes with actually finding where we think everyone truly deserves to be with just more time and more games being played.
Yeah, I mean, no, for sure. I mean, and to any fan or team upset with these rankings, you're going to have plenty more season to prove yourself and to move up. I mean, there's a lot of resume building left to be done. This is just kind of our preliminary thoughts on where everyone stays. So our second to last list, actually, our top 10 and SBC. ESD obviously moves up to number 1 after their victory over Kincaid, who slides down to number 2. Cistercian out of Irving goes up to number 6. Bel Air of Houston falls to number 7. And guys, does there need to be any discussion here? I mean, the big thing is ESD goes to 1, Kincaid goes to 2. I don't think there's a whole lot of commentary that needs to be had here on this.
Not really. The only thing I was going to point out: Houston St. John's, Kincaid. There's a gap. There's a gap in between. That's what I gotta say. There's a gap, and it doesn't matter if Houston St. John's undefeated and Kincaid has 2 losses. There's still a gap.
I'll detail that farther. I don't know if there's a big gap there. I think it's way too early to say that. I think
it goes, honestly, the first 4, maybe 5. No, first of all, 5, and then it drops, in my opinion. Yeah, I think the first 5 are good. No,
shout out John Cooper.
Right. And we had Bel Air Episcopal at 6 last week, but they lost again, and we just I like that Bel Air Episcopal team, but they're 1-5. You can't have them so far up there. Anyways, I think St. John's can make some noise. I think that St. Mark's versus St. John's game this week will just pretty much tell how good those teams really are. And we'll talk about that more later in our games. But yeah, like I think ESD is pretty much the team to beat. And I think John Cooper, like we said earlier, is the team to beat in 3A. I think they're going to win it all this year. I don't think there's going to be much competition in 3A this year.
No, I don't think so either. But that's all we have for top 10 of SBC. And now really quickly, there is something new that we're doing. This will probably already be on Twitter by the time this episode is posted. But our top 10 overall D1 through D4, including SBC rankings. At number 1, there's Parish Episcopal. Number 2, Nolan Catholic. Number 3, Episcopal School of Dallas. Number 4, Austin Regents, the first D2 team on the list. Number 5, Central Catholic. Number 6, Addison Trinity Christian. Number 7, Kincaid. Number 8, Houston Second Baptist. Number 9, Prestonwood Christian, falling all the way down there after that loss to Parish. And number 10, Dallas Christian. So, guys, like I've said over the past 3 or 4 lists, Walker, you first. Your thoughts on the newly constructed top 10 overall list?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's honestly pretty good. I mean, I think Parish winning state last year, they have a good team again this year. The only loss is the Austin LBJ, who made it far in the playoffs last year in UIL. I think it's a good team. Nolan's right behind them. They're a pretty good team as well. ESD is 7-0 and the top team in SPC. And Austin Regents look really good. They're on fire right now, and they're the best team in D2. Central Catholic, I really like. We all like, and that's why they're 5. I could see Addison Trinity Christian maybe jumping that to go to 5, but you never know. Kincaid is, I think, good placement. Second Baptist, I think we really like. That's why they're 8. Prestonwood's 9, Dallas Christian 10. I could see in that 10th spot, you could have had St. John's in there from Houston, but I honestly think it's a pretty good list. What do y'all think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it looks good. The only thing I would change is Prestonwood at 9. I think you could put Prestonwood as high as 4. I mean, I think they get punished a little bit too much for a loss to the best team in the state. But I think, like I said, as the weeks go on, they'll continue to win games, in my opinion, and they'll rise back up the list. It's just, I mean, them being 9 now doesn't mean they're going to be the 9th best team in the state once it's all said and done. I think organically they'll rise back up. I don't think it's a huge deal. But Ryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to say this real quick. Definitely, I agree 100% what you said there for Prestonwood. We want to make it very clear as well, and we'll announce this when we put it on Twitter or Instagram as well. This is without Strake Jesuit and Dallas Jesuit. We're not including those in our top 10 overall. Just because, not that we don't think that they're obviously probably better than a lot of these teams. It's just we just want to take them out of just the list. We think it's a little bit more authentic to have most of these just TAPS and SBC teams.
Because they play a UIL schedule. All these teams play TAPS and SBC schedule. So it wouldn't make sense to rank them in there.
Yes, that's the only reason. Just want to make that very clear before you think that we didn't rank them at all in here. We're not stupid. We know that they play UIL schedule. And then Prestonwood being that as well. And I really could see, people coming in for that spot. But yeah, this top 10 overall, I'm actually very proud of this. If anything, this was probably a little bit easier to make than the D3, D4, ironically enough, which is funny to think that the overall would be easier than D3, D4. But it's just how it is.
I'm telling you, shout out to Walker for putting the backbone into that, because that D3, D4 list is a bear to figure out. There's a lot of very slight margins that separate a lot of those teams. But that is our updated ranking system. Shout out to us for being the premier group that does that. I'll pat us on the back a little bit. But now we transition into our final segment that we're actually going to have to go pretty fast since we've been recording for an hour already. Our games of the week. And now that we have ranking systems, we see number 2 ranked Nolan Catholic face number 6 ranked All Saints. Nolan Catholic comes into the contest 4-2. All Saints comes in at 3-2. All Saints averages 31 points a game. They give up 30. Nolan averages 42 points per game and gives up 26. I'm not overcomplicating this one, guys. Nolan's the better team, in my opinion. They've been all in our mentions lately, upset that we ranked them. God forbid, the number 3 team in the state. I apologize. But, I mean, I think the Nolan defense, specifically their defensive line with Cal commit Curly Thomas and 4-star Caleb James, I think if All Saints fails to keep those guys in check, I don't see their offense gaining much traction. So I want Nolan Catholic here. I say put the focus on their defensive line and see how that matches up with All Saints in the trenches. Walker, I feel like this is a pretty clear-cut pick, but maybe it's not. Your thoughts on All Saints and Nolan Catholic?
No, I'm gonna go with Nolan here too. But I will say that battle of what is it? It's the Battle of Fort Worth. Like it's the two best Fort Worth teams usually every year battling out. And like I said last year, like not just not just the best two private schools in Fort Worth, probably the two best schools in Fort Worth, like UIL or private. I mean, those two teams are really, really good. And I know Nolan's kind of has won the past couple years over Fort All Saints, but that team is always a good, really good matchup. Just because it is a rivalry, you might see him keep it a little bit close, but I think Fort Worth Nolan will win this game.
No, I agree with you. Ryan, as it always seems to be, we are 2-0 coming to you. So your thoughts on Nolan Catholic, Fort Worth All Saints?
Yeah, Nolan Catholic's going to destroy All Saints in this game, in my opinion. I think that's pretty clear. And if they don't, then we'll be in your mentions, Nolan Catholic.
I don't know why I found that so funny, but after all the back and forth, that really got me. Yeah, so here's the motivation. Nolan, y'all win here, we will be in y'all's mentions.
Hey, I will say this, though. Before I get, dusted for everything that happens here, rivalry games are different. And that's what I talked about with Fort Worth Christian when I was talking to them in the game before the game for Legacy. Rivalry games are different. We were so high on DC and Fort Worth Christian. I mean, sometimes these battles and stuff like that, especially in the DFW area, are pretty tough. And guys go out a lot more usually against their rivals than they do normal games. That's just the way it is in Taps Private School.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell myself that before I go watch Grace play Brook Hill, but hopefully that same sentiment holds. It's a little teaser for a game I'll cover in a couple of weeks. But game number 2. Number 5 ranked Houston St. Thomas at 7th ranked San Antonio Antonian Prep. St. Thomas's average is almost 40 points per game. They give up 22. Antonian scores 28 while allowing 20. This game is going to be pivotal between two teams fighting to stay in the district race. Even though they just lost to Central Catholic a couple weeks ago, I like St. Thomas in this one. I've raved about quarterback Jake Wright and his receivers, Cam Price, Johan Cardenas, and Joe Rick Madden. I think this is a good chance. This is the most high-powered passing attack the Apaches have faced thus far, and I think it gives Houston St. Thomas a slight edge here. So give me Houston St. Thomas, put a focus on the St. Thomas passing attack. Walker, your thoughts against or on the number 5 and the number 7 ranked team this game?
You know what, Ryan? Why don't you go first? We're gonna switch it up a little bit. And
oh, good Lord.
Yeah, you know what? I'm okay with that. Honestly, I think it's pretty simple here. I think it's pretty simple to say that Houston St. Thomas is just honestly a better team when it comes down to it. Nothing against Antonian Prep. They obviously are at my heart for basketball powerhouse. They are the powerhouse in basketball. But, when it comes to football, I think it's pretty obvious to see that there is that drop off when it comes to the rankings in that area. I mean, and I hate to be that way, but it really is, you kind of hit that Midland Christian level. And then after that, I kind of just go like Antonian Prep's just a little bit lower. So in my head, this is just my opinion. I think that Houston St. Thomas is just definitely going to probably beat Antonian by at least 1 or 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, I think St. Thomas is definitely going to be. I think Vegas would have them favored by a touchdown or 2. If there was sports betting in high school football. So sorry, Mr. Tepper. But Walker, your thoughts on St. Thomas Antonian Prep? Oh, you're perplexed. I see.
I am perplexed. That is a great word. The only team they have both faced this year is San Antonio Christian. You know what? Okay. I was different the past last week, and I got 2 wins over both of y'all.
Okay.
And you know what? This is the game. I'm going to go different again. I'll go Antonian Prep. I think they're a good team. They're a good squad. They face the rough out of district schedule. I think they're a good team. And yeah, give me this game. I think it'll be close, but give me Antonian Prep.
That scares me, and it should scare both of us, Ryan, because last time this happened, we were wrong and Walker is right. So, hopefully,
But the weeks 2-3 weeks before that, when I went bold, I also it was totally wrong. So could happen again. We'll see.
I mean, just a coin flip at this point. But two of us take St. Thomas. Walker takes Antonian Prep. Will be a very interesting game that the whole podcast will be watching nervously. Next game, number 9 ranked, the Woodlands Christian Academy take on Houston Second Baptist. Straight up, I think the Woodlands came out and got punched in the mouth last week against Fort Bend, and they realized just exactly what this district is going to be about. And now they're facing arguably the best team in that district. Second Baptist hasn't suffered a loss since the opening 20-14 game to Kincaid, who seems to be doing, pretty well on their own. It's not like Second Baptist got the doors blown off. They lost by 6. So, and none of those other games have been close for Second Baptist except a 23-19 win against UIL 4A Calhoun. I'm going to go bold here and say Everett Skiller and the gang open this one up and score a big win against the Woodlands. I'm talking like 21 points at least. I mean, I know that's bold, but I mean, I just saw what Fort Bend came out and did to the Woodlands last week, and I think Second Baptist is even better than Fort Bend. So this is going to be, I think this is a make or break game for the Woodlands, and I think Houston Second Baptist is going to come out big and probably break them, but we'll see. So that's my thoughts on the Woodlands at Second Baptist. Walker, how do you think this game between the 9th-ranked team in the state and the second is going to turn out?
I mean, I think it's just like you think. 19th in the state playing the number 2 team in the state. I think the number 2 state team will win this. I think Second Baptist will win this. I think they're a good team, man. Everett Skiller and Turner Murdoch. I really like that 24 quarterback over there at Second Baptist. I think he'll be very, very good. Mark my words. And I think he'll get only better with time. And then, have Eli Smith, Grayson Kim, all those dudes. They're good team, good talent. And I think it'll just be too much for TWCA here. But get in the future, ready for TWCA to make some noise. But I don't think that will be the case this week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we got to see if Josh Johnson and Warwick Hawkins come out and put up a fight against Second Baptist. Ryan, we are 2-0 moving into you. Your thoughts on the Woodlands at Second Baptist?
I mean, it's kind of just like how y'all said it. Houston Second Baptist is just that team. We already know that they're right there with Regents. I have no problem picking them against Woodlands as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a very hard decision to make. But speaking of hard decisions to make, our last 2 games are starting with number 5, Lubbock Trinity Christian at number 4, Lubbock Christian. And, this is just a huge game here against, like I mentioned, the number 5, number 4 ranked teams in the state. It's a huge inner city game, and I think these are the hardest to predict. Like Ryan was mentioning before, as crazy things always seem to happen in rivalry games like this. Lubbock Trinity comes in averaging 28 and allowing 19. Lubbock Christian scores 42. They give up 14. Lubbock Christian suffered a big 20-point loss to Covenant last week, a team that Lubbock Trinity beat 36-12. I'm not basing this pick solely off one game, but I do think that game is a good microcosm of these 2 teams as a whole at this point in time. For that reason, I'll be taking Lubbock Trinity Christian in the battle for West Texas. Give me the number 5 team in the state. Walker, I picked number 5 teamed up to the number 4 team. Your thoughts on this Lubbock inner city matchup?
Yeah, I was going to do the same. I'm going to go Lubbock Trinity Christian here. I think they're a good team. They're a little bit underrated. And I think they made a lot of noise last year in the playoffs. And I think they're going to do really, really good this year. So, yeah, give me Lubbock Trinity Christian here. Don't get it twisted. I think Lubbock Christian is a great team. And they're 6-1 for a reason. But I think I'm going to give the win to Lubbock Trinity here in a good game. Always a rivalry game up there in Lubbock.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think it'll be close as well. I don't think either team opens this game up by a wide margin. But Ryan, the 2 of us have picked an upset leading into your pick. Are you gonna jump on the train? No.
Ooh.
You're muted.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not there with y'all. I am with Lubbock Christian, and I want to make it very clear that a team that hasn't lost all year is going to take their first loss very, very hard, especially the fact that you have to realize They had to travel all the way from Lubbock into Colleyville, which is, DFW area, to play this game at Colleyville Covenant. Trinity Christian Lubbock did not have to do that. They got to play Colleyville in their home, in their home stadium, which means they didn't have to do the same drive that Lubbock Christian did. I want to make it also very clear that, this team has been blowing out every other team they played. Lubbock Christian has been really just showing people that they are one of the best teams in there. And I actually think it'd be so cool if one of us could trek all the way out to Lubbock. That's just so unrealistic. But, it would be really, really cool, because I bet that just the atmosphere and all this is going to be so amazing in Lubbock. I think I'm definitely going to probably turn on the live stream if there is one. I really want to just see what the atmosphere is like at a Lubbock rivalry game. I bet it's going to be something fun. And honestly, I really am excited to see how these two teams match up against each other. Definitely the hardest game to pick this week, but I am going to go against I'm going to pick Lubbock Christian.
I mean, this huge intercity game, two of us pick an upset. Ryan goes chalk. Will be interesting to see. I think it's going to be incredibly close and a game that we will all sweat out. Moving into our final game of the week, we see a huge SBC matchup at number 4, Dallas St. Mark's, at number 3, Houston St. John's. And this is a game most likely for third in SBC 4A behind two elite teams in ESD Kincaid. Although I do think there is a chance for one of these teams, St. John's, to shake things up completely. But I'll save the detailing of that for another episode. Short and sweet, I'm not betting against St. John's after what they did to us after the Fort Bend incident. They didn't forget that I called them a quote-unquote middle-of-the-road team in SBC, and they have railed off 6 wins since then. I think they are 100% out to prove they're for real this year, and beating St. Mark's would really start to solidify that statement. Walker, this is a huge game in SBC 4A for not only district rankings, but for pride as well. Your thoughts, you're smirking. I think you're going to go against me. Dallas St. Mark's at St. John's.
It's a number 5, number 4, number 3 game. It's another good one. And you know what? I'm not going to go against you.
No.
I'm actually going to do a mortal lock on this game. And I'm going to go Houston St. John's on this mortal lock. And I think that I believe when I did my mortal lock last time was the Fort Bend over Houston St. John's. Ooh. And yeah, I'm not failing them again. I believe in this team. I believe they're going to win this game. And yeah, I think Houston St. John's is now a good team. I've now learned about it. I'm not getting it twisted anytime soon. So give me my mortal lock of the week to be Houston St. John's over Dallas St. Mark's.
I mean, St. John's has made believers out of all of us after that just horrible incident a couple of weeks ago. Ryan, we are 2-0 on this game as we transition to your pick. Your thoughts on number 4 ranked Dallas St. Mark's at number 3 ranked Houston St. John's.
Honestly, I think Houston St. John's has got something to prove here. And it may not be the fact that they're undefeated, because obviously that proves something in itself, but I think they want to prove that they are that second spot. Although they may not be telling us that they're looking at our rankings or all that kind of stuff. But, I think somewhere someone is there thinking like, we want to be number 2. And I think, if that's enough for them to win, then that's enough for them to win. Also, the fact I'm saying it, y'all, like, big bus treks down to some of these places is a lot more than you think it is. Going on a 3-4 hour drive from Dallas St. Mark's down to Houston St. John's will not be easy. Like, it's that kind of stuff hits you. Like, I want to make that very clear to anyone that's basically probably not from Texas or, didn't play football or didn't play any sports in Texas. When you have to travel from one place to another for an away game, it really hits you hard. And I think Dallas St. Mark's is going to get hit hard by that, and also get hit hard by the Houston St. John's players. So I got Houston St. John's in this one, maybe by about like a touchdown or 2.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that wraps up a really, really good 5 slate of games. I think this is some of the best games that we've covered so far. I'm very, very excited to see how all of those turn out. But I mean, ending rather abruptly, unless any of y'all have anything else to say. I mean, that's been the episode for the week. I mean, we will have the new rankings up by the time, or the top 10 ranking up by the time this episode comes out. Go on.
Oh, where are you going this week? You see you're going to go somewhere?
I'll actually be at Central Catholic at St. Pius. It's a school I love going down to in St. Pius. It's where I've received probably the most love out of anywhere I've been. I'm very, very excited to see not only St. Pius, but also Central Catholic. We've obviously talked about them a lot. I'm excited to see, Silas Gomez, Ben Rios, all of them. I think they're very talented. I think that'll be an interesting game down in Houston. So St. Pius, I'll see you all Friday. But I mean, barring any further comment, I've been Wes Tolleson, 130, your hosting crew. Walker Lott and Ryan Schroeder have excellently, as always, been themselves. We will see you in the next episode. See you later.